Part 1, Chapter 4, Section 21. Direct Attacks. In the first case, the attack must be carried on with sufficient force to guarantee its success. Under no consideration must a direct attack against the king be carried on an outrance, unless there is absolute certainty in one's own mind that it will succeed, since failure in such cases means disaster. Example 50. A good example of a successful direct attack against the king is shown in the following diagram. In this position, white could simply play bishop c2 and still have the better position, but instead he prefers an immediate attack on the king's side, with the certainty in his mind that the attack will lead to a win. The game continues thus. Footnote. We give from now on games and notes so that the student may familiarize himself with the many and varied considerations that constantly are borne in mind by the chess master. We must take it for granted that the student has already reached a stage where, while not being able fully to understand every move, yet he can derive benefit from any discussion with regard to them. Bishop takes h7 check, king takes h7, knight g5 check, king g6, queen g4, f5. Best. e5 would have been immediately fatal. Thus, knight e6 check, king f6, f4, e4, queen g5 check, king takes e6, queen e5 check, king d7, rook f d1 check, knight d3, knight takes e4, king c6. If king e8, then knight d6 check wins the queen. Rook takes d3, queen takes d3, rook c1 check, king b6. If king d7, then mate in 2. Queen c7 check, and mate in 5 moves. Queen g3, king h6, queen h4 check, king g6, queen h7 check, king f6. If king takes g5, then queen takes g7 check and mate in a few moves. e4, knight g6, e takes f5, e takes f5, rook a d1, knight d3, queen h3, knight d f4, queen g3, queen c7, rook f e1, knight e2 check. This blunder loses at once, but the game could not be saved in any case. Bishop e6, rook takes e6 check, knight takes e6, knight d5, checkmate. Rook takes e2, queen takes g3, knight h7 check, king f7, h takes g3, rook h8, knight g5 check, king f6, f4, resigns. Example 51. Another example of this kind. In the above position, the simple move, knight takes e5, would win, but white looks for complications and their beauties. Such a course is highly risky until a wide experience of actual master play has developed a sufficient insight into all the possibilities of a position. This game, which won the Brilliancy Prize at St. Petersburg in 1914, continued as follows. Bishop h4, queen d7, knight takes c8, queen takes c6, queen d8 check, queen e8. If king f7, then knight d6 check, king moves, 25, mate. Bishop e7 check. King f7. Knight d6 check. King g6. Knight h4 check. King h5. If king h6, then knight d f5 check. King h5. Knight takes g7 check. King h6. Knight h f5 check. King g6. Queen d6 check. And mate next move. Knight takes e8. Rook takes d8. Knight takes g7 check. King h6. Knight g f5 check. King h5. h3. The climax of the combination started with bishop h4. White is still threatening mate, and the best way to avoid it is for black to give back all the material he has gained and to remain 3 pawns behind. The student should note that in the examples given, the attack is carried out with every available piece, and that often, as in some of the variations pointed out, it is the coming into action of the last available piece that finally overthrows the enemy. It demonstrates the principle already stated. Direct and violent attacks against the king must be carried out en masse, with full force, to ensure their success. The opposition must be overcome at all costs. The attack cannot be broken off, since in all such cases that means defeat.